Today on Notsam Wrestling, Cody Rhodes' best story since his battle with the Bloodline is unfolding, and it is not opposite Roman Reigns. The WWE's relationship with the CW begins. What match will main event Bad Blood? Jey Uso wins the Intercontinental Championship, and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, and I want to begin our conversation this week talking about something that has been a part of this podcast and just about any sort of wrestling dialogue that you're going to have, which is Cody Rhodes as champion and the stories that have followed. We've talked about how whether it was the story with AJ Styles or the story with Logan Paul, it ended up being great matches. Not necessarily that meaty story that you were looking for, especially after everything that we saw with Cody Rhodes and the Bloodline unfold in the 2 years leading to WrestleMania 40. But I would tell you now that if you are in camp, criticize the lack of stories in Cody Rhodes' title reign, it feels like it's time to put that criticism away. It feels like it is no longer applicable to talk about the fact that those meaty stories aren't there with Cody Rhodes, because we are watching one unfold week to week on Smackdown, and Roman Reigns and the Bloodline and the tag team that is Cody and Roman is really just a distraction from what's really going on right under the surface. So obviously, we talked about this, that the next chapter in Roman Reigns' career, in the story, in the saga of Roman Reigns, after he lost the WWE Championship, would be twofold. Yes, he would absolutely be a babyface. He was a babyface the night after WrestleMania. But even as a babyface, he would have to, the chickens would come home to roost. He would have to deal with everything that he did and pay the consequences for everything that he did as champion over 3.5 years when he held the WWE Championship hostage, that people wouldn't forget about everything that he's done. And it seems like he's not the only one that's going to have to pay for it. We saw this great theatrical confrontation between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. And while there was no love lost, there was an agreement. Clearly, Cody and Roman, not friends, don't like each other, are ultimately rivals. However, Cody asked Roman to promise that he would have Cody's back, and Roman gave him his word. I will have your back, American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, although you are in my way. And while the headline is, ooh, I can't wait to see what Roman Reigns eventually does to attempt to get Cody Rhodes out of his way in life. What else is going on? What's going on right under the surface? While Roman Reigns is dealing with the Bloodline, that's the least, quite frankly, of Cody Rhodes' concerns. Randy Orton starts out SmackDown this week, and he's not angry. He's just got an eyebrow raised, right? Where it's like, do we have something to deal with here? And he invites his friend, Cody Rhodes, to come to the ring and explain to him how Cody can stand on the same side of the ring as Roman Reigns. And when I say invites him, it's pretty clear that he's inviting him out of a courtesy, but it's not an ask. However, WWE champion Cody Rhodes freely, on his own accord, makes his way to the ring and gives Randy the scoop, lets him know what's been going on, and that while, that he and Roman may not be on the same page, he may not ultimately, trust Roman with his life per se, he has gotten Roman's word that Roman will have his back in this battle with the Bloodline, and they all agree they have to put down the Bloodline. Are you cool with that, he says? And Randy says, oh, we're cool. We are absolutely cool. I don't have a problem with that, is what Randy Orton says, unless you make it one. And you go, okay. And Cody goes, okay. Like, it's like, I'm catching this vibe. I see what we're cooking here. And then, here comes Kevin Owens. And the same way that we were not able to get Kevin Owens' actual response, his verbal response to the showdown between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes last week, he's interrupted again this week when the bloodline comes out and Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu and the Tongans are there. And they're saying, oh, yeah, Cody, you should trust Roman. You should trust Roman because you need Roman. Because these two, they don't have your back. Solo Sikoa, no, these two, he didn't say these two don't have your back. He said these two can't stop the bloodline. They've tried. Solo Sikoa went to the Roman Reigns school of mental manipulation, where he is just pouring that salt on. Salt. Because that's the problem that Randy Orton and Kevin Owens would have with Cody Rhodes teaming with Roman Reigns. Not just, hey, I don't like that guy. Why are you friends with him? It's, I'm insulted that you think you need to go to Roman Reigns to be your partner in this when you've got friends here already. And Solo knows that, and so he's sprinkling the seeds of dissension in. He's watering those seeds. He's pollinating them, is what he's doing. He's a bumblebee, that Solo Sikoa, when it comes to the roots of discontent. So, they're going back and forth, and the challenge is made. Kevin Owens challenges the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, to a tag team match. He and Randy versus Jacob and Solo. And Cody grabs the mic, and he goes, and it doesn't even just have to be a tag team match because there's 3 of us. And Kevin Owens goes, no. It'll just be a tag team. We're good, though. Appreciate you, dog. You got a tag team match. You've got a tag team partner. Me and Randy, we're good. And, I felt that in the pit of my stomach. That's when you're in middle school and you think you're part of a group of friends, but you do some dumb shit, right? And be like, no big deal. I'll just tell them whatever. And then they go, oh, are you coming over later? And your friend to your other friend goes, yeah, I'm coming over. And then you go, oh, we're all meeting at your house after school? And they go, oh, yeah, no, I mean, I think this time it's just, no, we just had a thing that it's just going to be the 2 of us. But no, I'm sure we'll hang out again soon. And you go, oh. And you feel it's a kick to the gut. Is what it is. And Cody felt that. He's making these decisions, right? That championship makes people look at you differently. And Cody, always the politician, is starting to lead with his emotions. We saw him leading with his emotions the way he was responding to Roman Reigns on the football field in Georgia. Okay? He's leading with his emotions and not realizing that he is making political mistakes here. And that friends, quote unquote, do you really have any friends when you're the champion, could look at the things that you're doing a little bit differently. We get backstage throughout the show. Kevin Owens tells Cody, we're good. Don't even worry about it, though. Don't come out. Don't get yourself involved. Don't complicate things. And then, a couple segments later, Randy goes, yeah, no, I know all that. But look, I mean, you know how the bloodline is. And I get where Kevin's coming from, but they play the numbers. They get mixed up in this stuff. If we need you and you need to even those odds, help us out there. Oh, yeah, you got it, Randy. No problem, Randy. We'll take this back to have to legacy. Am I right, dog? Well, whatever. So I just put that in. Cody didn't actually say, let's take this back to legacy, dog. So Cody comes out. Of course, he does need to get involved. The bloodline shows themselves. Cody gets involved. Jacob ends up throwing Cody in the ring, knocks the referee in the legs. Referee misses a cover attempt by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens goes WTF. They're able to attack him from behind. Solo gets the pin, 1, 2, 3. Kevin Owens and Randy Orton go down to the bloodline, and ultimately, Kevin Owens sees it as Cody Rhodes' fault. Kevin Owens is very vocal about that. He's mad that Cody Rhodes is there at all. Randy is trying to separate them. Randy Orton is trying to, it's okay, it's a misunderstanding. And we do get the reluctant hug from Kevin Owens to Cody Rhodes to take SmackDown off the air. I told you guys, I feel like months ago at this point, that this is where I see things going for Cody Rhodes, that there is a Kevin Owens turn coming and a Randy Orton turn coming. Now, the more I think about what we're seeing here now, at first, it was, we're watching the kind of slow turn of Kevin Owens. It started when he couldn't be the shark that nature intended him to be in the ring against Cody Rhodes, couldn't take advantage of the things that he would have taken advantage of if he weren't having a match with somebody who he actually considers a friend. And it cost him the WWE Championship in his eyes. And I said, slowly but surely, we're going to see this eat away at Kevin Owens. We're going to see Cody Rhodes making decisions that irk Kevin Owens to the point that Kevin Owens is going to have no choice but to turn on Cody Rhodes. And we may see that. However, I think that this is Inception. We're several layers deep in this story. That what looks like a Roman Reigns story with Cody Rhodes, but is actually the story of Kevin Owens turning on Cody, goes even deeper than that. Because what looks like a Roman Reigns and Cody story that is actually a story of Kevin Owens turning on Cody is actually a story of Randy Orton ultimately turning on Cody Rhodes. I think what we're seeing is Randy Orton being the person that he always has been, being the Viper that he always has been. He's just sitting there in that tall grass right now, in that tall grass going, let's just walk. Just go ahead and walk. Just go ahead and walk. And he's just waiting for the exact right moment when you're as confident as you've ever been, walking through that grass, going, nothing is going to get me today, before he strikes and that venom is coursing through your blood. That's what Randy Orton is doing. Randy Orton's reaction to Cody Rhodes, very different than Kevin Owens' reaction. Kevin Owens' reaction is truthful and emotional. Randy Orton's playing a little bit of a game. Randy Orton is still smiling. He's ready for it. If you want it to be a problem, it could be a problem. How do you feel, though, about it, Randy? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Oh, are you really? Are you really? Because I've seen you for months now staring at that WWE Championship. I've seen you every time Cody Rhodes is in the ring with you looking at that title. I've seen you every time Cody Rhodes says, I'm going to defend this title. Perk your head up, okay? I've seen all of it. All of it. And I think Randy Orton is what this is all going to lead to. That Randy Orton knew that if he told Cody to come out and help us, that it would overcomplicate things, it would get Kevin Owens emotional, and they would make a mistake. And Randy Orton was willing for that, to let that mistake happen if it meant that Kevin Owens would turn on Cody, which would leave Cody prime. And if Cody is over here distracted with everything that he's got with Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton is going, don't worry about him, don't worry about him, don't worry about him. It gives Randy Orton that moment to strike. If Randy Orton is going like, hey man, I'm trying to help, and all the attention is Cody trying to figure out how to make things better with Kevin, and Cody maybe even having to fight Kevin Owens off, he's not going to be paying attention to Randy Orton, and that's when Randy Orton is going to strike. We need to get a Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes match, another one. But I want that Kevin Owens turn to happen. Here's what I would like to see happen. Kevin Owens turns on Cody Rhodes. And then we realize that this was all manipulated by Randy Orton, so we can get Kevin Owens as a heel and Randy Orton as a heel matches. And after that's over, we can go back to Cody and Roman, and Kevin and Randy either happy with both of their actions, are cool, or Kevin goes, hey, Randy, screw you for manipulating that whole thing, and now we've got Kevin Owens and Randy Orton with a natural rivalry. So everything that we're seeing here right now, I think leads to Cody and Roman, Cody and Kevin, Cody and Randy, Randy and Kevin. That's not only four matches, four multi-pronged rivalries, 4 matches that could rematch on multiple pay-per-views each. And I think that that's ultimately the story of this Cody Rhodes title run, this time that we've had since WrestleMania and that we will continue to have, is what's the big picture story going to look like? And maybe we needed some time. Maybe we needed a few months to just establish Cody Rhodes as champion, to just have that traditional, I'm a babyface, I'm fighting heels, championship run. Before we could get to this place where Cody hits that road that's rocky. Before we could get to this place where it's like, no, man, we're not playing this by old school rules. It's not just Cody gets to go to the ring, be a good guy, challenge a bad guy, beat the bad guy, and move on to the next one. Nope, because you can't trust your friends. Because you've decided to align yourself with Randy Orton, and if anyone in this world knows that Randy Orton will manipulate a situation, it's Cody Rhodes. All I'm saying is, watch what we've got in front of us. Because if I'm a betting man, then while we're sitting here going, oh, I think we're watching the story of Kevin Owens turning on Cody Rhodes, what we're really watching is Randy Orton orchestrating Kevin Owens turning on Cody Rhodes so that it's Randy Orton that can turn on Cody and start this rivalry that people have really been waiting for since Cody Rhodes got back to the WWE. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton is one of those matches that everybody's talked about forever. Since Cody's become this star, like that's the match you want to revisit, but you can't just revisit it in an exhibition for the sake of revisiting it. You got to tell a story. One of them's got to be a good guy. The other one's got to be a bad guy. And I'm not sitting here watching a babyface Randy Orton versus a heel Cody Rhodes. No. Shave that head bald. Let's get bald Randy back out here. Just the worst of the worst. And let's see what happens, you know? It's been long enough time that we could probably make it feel like Randy Orton might actually win this championship. Especially as we get closer and closer to 2025 and we realize, well, maybe Randy's going to beat Cody for the championship, and then we can do Randy Orton versus John Cena so that John Cena can break the record. There's a lot that's on the table. Also on the table is the head of the table, Roman Reigns, who an advertisement came out this week. Roman Reigns is advertised for every Smackdown except for one, starting October 11th and going all the way to November 22nd. And they're all advertised as Roman Reigns is going to be there in person, not doing like, pre-taped or cinematic or whatever. Now, I don't know that he's advertised for next week's SmackDown in Nashville. I feel like he should be on that show since it's the go-home show before Bad Blood. But maybe they'll do another pre-tape thing. Who knows? But it does, for October 11th, October 18th, all of them. It says, come see, and that's how you know what a big star, by the way, Roman Reigns has become. Come see Roman Reigns in person on SmackDown, October 11th through November 22nd. I think the November 1st SmackDown might be the only one that he's not advertised for being at in all that time. So that would lead me to believe two things. Roman Reigns is back. And number two is we got something cooking for War Games. And either we're going to get that multi-person Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton match where you get all the baby faces in there, or against the Bloodline, or the reassembly of the Bloodline. One or the other is bound to happen. Which leads me into my next conversation, which is Bad Blood on Saturday. And what will the main event of that show be? Because it is difficult to believe, especially right now, that Roman Reigns returning for not only his first pay-per-view, advertised pay-per-view, he was on SummerSlam, he did a run-in, but his first advertised pay-per-view since WrestleMania 40 at the beginning of April, but also his first match since WrestleMania 40 at the beginning of April with Cody Rhodes and the Bloodline on the other side. It is difficult to believe that that is not the main event of the show. However, when you look at all that, I truly feel like Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus the Bloodline is the beginning of what's to come, is the beginning of this next series of rivalries. The rivalries of Roman Reigns versus the Bloodline, Cody versus Roman, Cody versus Kevin, Kevin versus Randy, Randy versus Cody, all this stuff. This is where it all kind of begins as far as a premium live event match goes. On this show, you've got the match that is being advertised as the end of a rivalry that has been fueling Monday Night Raw since, however you want to cut it, at least January, maybe even before. Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk. I was watching the WrestleMania Behind the Curtain doc again over the weekend, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes why I was doing that. But just thinking about the fact that watching CM Punk trip Drew McIntyre on that table, hit him with his brace, giving Damian Priest the open, who would have thought that we'd go the road that we've been on that leads us to Bad Blood and this Hell in a Cell match? I personally believe that when you're sitting here saying, this is the culmination of that rivalry, this is the end of it, this is the last one, whoever wins this one wins the feud, you've got a main event with that match. Bad Blood, I would love to see main evented by Drew McIntyre and CM Punk inside the Hell in a Cell. Put that importance on both Drew and Punk's name and also on the story. Ultimately, we should know that when we've got a story that we are this invested in, that it is important. That Roman Reigns is not going to be the default every time, and I'm the biggest Roman Reigns fan that you'll ever find. But ultimately, we've followed Drew and Punk this entire run, invested so much time into it, gave up so many title matches, gave up a Money in the Bank briefcase, gave up all of that, sacrificed all of it for the betterment of this story. 3 premium live event matches. The only 3 singles matches that CM Punk has had since his return to the WWE last November. All because it was that important. And if it's that important, that's the match that I think should be main eventing the pay-per-view. Not only do I think that the CM Punk Drew McIntyre match should be main eventing the pay-per-view, and primarily because it's being promoted as that end of the story. But I also think that man, this week's Raw, Punk and Drew should go off the air with something white hot. There have been so many hot angles on Monday Night Raw lately. The Judgment Day is back to being on fire on Monday Night Raw in their rivalry with the Terror Twins. The Bronson Reed, Braun Strowman stuff has been unbelievable. Jey Uso winning the Intercontinental Championship, unbelievable. But I'll tell you, CM Punk cut a great promo a couple of weeks ago. But it was, whatever it was, 8 minutes, no run-in, just by himself talking to the camera. Drew McIntyre matches that promo on Raw. And it's a short one, by himself, just talking to the camera, no run-in, no spectacular anything. And you're like, okay. I want to see those 2 people on Raw on Monday before this pay-per-view tearing that place apart. Show me why this match should main event a premium live event. Show me why this match has 9 months of story behind it. Show me why we've put these 2 inside a Hell in a Cell. I want a segment on Monday Night Raw that leaves no question, that makes anybody watching go, well, those 2 couldn't wrestle if it wasn't inside a Hell in a Cell. The Hell in a Cell should not be, in this case, something that is just sweetening the pot. The Hell in a Cell should be something that is essential. And almost like, I don't know what else to do, but we can't move on until we do this. So let's lock them both inside that cage with a roof on it and just let them tear each other apart until one man is still standing. I want to see that message sent loud and clear on Monday Night Raw, and that's the match by a mile that I want to see main event Bad Blood. Now, if it doesn't, it doesn't. And maybe there's a story that's going to be told in the Roman Cody Bloodline tag match that needs to be at the end of the show just so you end on the right moment. And if that's the case, that's the case. But just looking on paper, if you want me to pick what match main events Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell is 100% the way to go for me. And then we can really get to Raw next week and go, what's next for both Drew and for CM Punk? Because I think if you do it in the main event spot, it's even more final. I think if in the main event of that show, Drew McIntyre beats Punk, Punk beats Drew McIntyre, and the show ends with one guy standing up with his arm in the air, there's no stronger message than this rivalry is over, and that's the person who won. And I think that's the message that you want to send home so that you can move on naturally, because it's going to be difficult for both of them to just naturally move on to whatever the next story is, because this has been all-encompassing for both of those guys for so very long. Forgive the interruption, but I need you to stop being a baby and place some bets on the game already. With MyBookie, it couldn't be easier. With promos like weekly risk-free boosts, even if you've never bet on anything in your life, you can definitely handle this. With risk-free boosts, if your bet hits, you win big. If it doesn't, don't worry. MyBookie will give you a full refund. Look, I'd never bet before this season, and now I'm having a better time than I have in my life, except when the Bengals cost me money. If you're not a huge football fan, you can still get in on the fun. MyBookie has tons of games you can play, like blackjack and European roulette. When you're ready to get started, just click the link in the show notes. Sign up, and you're ready to bet. Use promo code NOTSAM to claim a bonus that doubles your money on your very first deposit. You heard that right. Double your money with code NOTSAM before you even place a bet. MyBookie Plus is the lock of the century. Bet on anything, anywhere, anytime, and make your season a winning season. I'd say put him in the main event, but that's just me. It's not my decision. I talked about the WrestleMania documentary because, of course, the relationship between the WWE and the CW network has already started. Tuesday will be the debut of NXT on the CW. That's coming from the All-State Arena where CM Punk will be. CM Punk's refereeing a match on NXT on Tuesday. I kind of feel like we should see a Drew McIntyre run-in, just so there's that, like, fluidity to it. Just so it feels like everything really does count, that there's not this other world over here, like it is all encompassing. Like when Seth Rollins showed up at the TakeOver event that was the night before his match with Triple H. I think that's when it was. I want to say, but it was it was when he was like, his rivalry with Triple H was at an all-time high. And Triple H would be on Raw being this villain, but be on NXT, and everybody kind of loved him on NXT because he was putting on such a good product. When Seth Rollins showed up there, because he knew, obviously, Hunter's going to be there, that's when we realized, like, oh, this rivalry is so strong that there is no, well, that's Triple H on Raw, but this is Triple H on NXT. On Raw, Triple H he's feuding with Seth Rollins right now, but on NXT, it's a different guy. And so I think by the same token, have Drew McIntyre jump him on NXT in front of all the kids, as Punk calls them, that admire him. Punk takes a great pride, I think, in going down to Orlando and helping this next generation of WWE superstars. Can you imagine if somebody who has quickly become a mentor to so many of them gets jumped in the middle of the ring in front of all of them by Drew McIntyre? Talk about fuel to the fire. And why not use those outlets? I feel like it would get more attention on the NXT CW show, but also use those eyeballs that are tuning in because they're curious about what NXT is going to look like on network television and point them towards the premium live event on Saturday in Atlanta. So, but the relationship has already begun because I think it was just a thing posted on social media. I didn't even know it was happening, but they said, hey, on Saturday night, they're going to run WrestleMania Behind the Curtain on the CW at 8 o'clock. And there'll be new footage added to fill out that 2-hour block. And I was like, that's awesome. You know, just the idea that these projects that the WWE creates, like a couple of weeks ago, USA aired the Bray Wyatt documentary after NXT. seeing that on USA, then seeing the WrestleMania doc on the CW, it's like, yeah, we know because we watch the product. We know that WWE is producing this stuff that is some of the best stuff, especially if you're a fan, that you can watch anywhere. But the idea that it's actually being accepted by these sort of mainstream outlet television stations, the people that are just channel surfing on their old school cable box can stumble across this stuff now is really, really cool. There was actually way more additional footage than I thought there would be. And it felt like, and maybe I haven't seen the one that they put up on YouTube in a while, but it just felt like there were a lot of these, I don't know, just like I'd be watching and it'd be like 30 seconds of footage or something that I'd go, I don't remember seeing that before. You know, there was like a segment with CM Punk. There was a segment with Cody Rhodes. There was a couple of segments with Roman Reigns that I was like, I don't think I've seen that before. But then even just extended backstage walks, just extended. I think they showed more of what actually happened at the show, like extended highlight reels of what was going on both on night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania 40, which is smart because maybe the people watching on the CW get excited about the wrestling that's happening on these shows, and they go, oh, I want to start watching wrestling again. Oh, look at that. NXT's coming on Tuesday. I'll watch on Tuesday. I don't have any of these streaming services, but obviously I got CW. Yeah, I'll watch on Tuesday. It felt like, yeah, there was also the additional footage was not like additional footage of The Rock as much as it was additional footage of the kind of full-time main roster guys, which was cool to see. And there was this one piece, which I was really surprised made it. And if everything counts, whether it was done intentionally or whether it was an oversight, I think it still is going to have to be addressed at some point. Because right before they went to commercial break, they showed Roman Reigns walking through the backstage area of the stadium at WrestleMania 40. And Jacob Fatu was walking behind him. I mean, he was wearing a hat. He had it pulled over his eyes a little bit. He had like an Umaga t-shirt on. But I saw it and I was like, wait, was that who I think? And then on Twitter, a whole bunch of people were posting the photos going, look at who it is. So you have to wonder if at some point that'll come up again. But it was very, very exciting to see that WrestleMania doc airing on the CW. And you know, for the fact that now we're going to have Raw on Netflix. We have Smackdown on USA. We now have NXT on the CW. And that you have all these network partners now all baked in. It's just so much more room for product for us to watch and for it to mainstream in that way. I don't know. I'm curious to see if this is just something that was done because it's network TV or if there is a shift in how the product is going to be presented. But a lot of people noticed that NXT apparently has been whatever the rating's been on cable, but when it goes over to the CW, it's going to take on a TV 14 rating. Now, that may be because the CW doesn't have, the CW is more used to family-friendly network stuff or drama stuff or whatever, and just because it's wrestling and violent by definition, it's combat, right? Maybe they said, well, on the CW, that's going to be a TV 14 show. Or they're like, hey, we're going to be on the CW. We're truly going to be looked at a little bit more independently now. Maybe we make this product a little edgier. Maybe we make it a little more youthful. Because I do think that NXT has been far more concentrative on the youth audience than any other product. And that's probably because you look at their roster. I mean, so many of the people on the NXT roster, are in their mid-20s, if not younger. There are people in their early 20s. There are people who are barely 20 that are on that show. So I don't know if they're going to add a little bit more edge to it with that in mind, or if that's just something looking at the show now on the CW, that's what they consider it. But it's interesting nonetheless. There are rumors because next week or this week, it's going to be in Chicago. Next week, it's going to be in St. Louis. Then I would imagine, because nothing else has been announced, and if they were going someplace elsewhere besides St. Louis the week after, you would think tickets would have to be on sale. So I would imagine they go back to the Performance Center after the St. Louis show next week. And there have been rumors that they're redesigning the studio in the Performance Center, which I think will be good. I think it'll be good to get a fresh coat of paint on it. And I think it'll be good for this sort of, if you wanted to call, I don't know, maybe fourth generation, right? There was developmental, then there was black and gold, then there was 2.0. Now this is kind of a fourth generation of NXT, and that's not count. I mean, you could break this. If you wanted to break it down really specific, you could probably say this is like the 8th generation of it, but let's call it the 4th. I think that now is the time to really give it its own identity, because for a long time now, it's been in this place of kind of having elements of the brightly colored paint splatter 2.0 mixed in with some of the older black and gold elements and just making this amalgamation, which is fair, I think, because that's what it has been. But it's evolved into its own thing. And I think that own thing should have its own identity. So hopefully that is true. I think that'd be cool to see. And I think, too, that when you talk about the location for NXT, I feel like the TV specials, like, how every quarter or so, instead of doing a premium live event, they do, like, Halloween Havoc is now, I guess, a Peacock premium live event, but it used to just be on TV, or Great American Bash, I think, is usually just a TV special. Spring Break-In, I think they've done before, TV special. If they're going to keep doing those TV specials, which I think they should try to make all those on the road. So week to week, NXT is still in Orlando. But for the premium live events and for the TV specials, those go on the road. And you do, I guess, I don't know how many they do, like six or so premium live events a year, and then maybe another 6 TV specials, something like that. So you can get them out there. I think that would be good, just so NXT feels like the look around it stays as fresh as the product kind of stays. But I'm very anxious to see what they do when they get to the CW. Of course, Jey Uso won the Intercontinental Championship on Monday Night Raw. It just made too much sense. And there was a time where I feel like because it made so much sense, WWE would not have gone with it, because they realized that while, yes, everybody wants this to happen, that's giving us an opportunity for heat. Let's go with the heat. Let's get Braun Breaker that heat. But I think this was 100% the right move, and I made a case for it last week on the podcast as to why I thought Jey Uso should be that guy, and he is that guy now. I get that some people were like, well, Braun Breaker he's just starting to build, and that shouldn't be interrupted. But I don't think it was interrupted. I don't think that everybody needs to have an undefeated streak in order to have credibility. If anything, I think distancing Braun Breaker from Bill Goldberg as much as possible is a good thing. Not because Bill Goldberg isn't good. Bill Goldberg is one of the greatest success stories in the history of wrestling. But Braun Breaker is not him. And we are prone as fans to go like, okay, former athlete, does the spear, super intense, and has a tribal tattoo. Who are we going to associate him with? So don't give him Goldberg's gimmicks if you don't want people to look at him like Goldberg, which is why I think the streak going away is a good thing. I mean, also, Goldberg was known for those like fast matches, right? Spear, jackhammer, that's what you're paying to see. Let's make this done in a hurry. He's just going to come in like a tornado and be gone into the next county. That's not Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker has had multiple long matches. Braun Breaker has sold for a lot of people. Braun Breaker is a different type of beast. Braun Breaker is all upside as far as his potential goes. And I think that it could be a positive thing for Braun to, at this point in his career, lose the Intercontinental Championship, because I think with Braun Breaker, especially when he won that title from Sami Zayn, they were in the process of building him as a villain, as a heel. But what happens every time Braun Breaker steps into an arena? What happens every time he steps into a ring? Who? The dogs are barking. Braun Breaker, I think we're going to see already have an evolution of character. I think Braun Breaker needs to accept the fact that fans like him. And it might be time for this Braun Breaker to be a babyface. As much as you would think that that's not, I think that that might be where we have to take this thing, because everybody loves the guy because he's so undeniable, because there isn't hyperbole with him. There isn't this thing where he's clearly being built up to fill someone else's shoes, or every single little positive is being highlighted while we hide every negative so we can trick you into thinking he's the one. No, he's ready now. It's not even like one day he's ready now. And we like that. Fans like that. So if anything, I think having the Intercontinental Championship taken off of him allows him to go in a new direction. It's easy. All you have to do is have a heel make fun of the fact that Braun Breaker was not able to hold on to the Intercontinental Championship as long as Braun Breaker thought he was going to hold on to it for. All you have to do is have a heel say, maybe Jey Uso was right. What was shorter, Braun? Your Intercontinental Championship reign or that NFL career of yours? And then Braun Breaker spears them out of their boots, and everybody cheers because it was a heel that did it. Yay! And now you've got Braun Breaker off to the races. I don't think there's any reason to think that this couldn't be spun into a positive ultimately for Braun Breaker. But who it's a positive for right now, without any reason to spin it at all, is Jey Uso. Jey Uso, from the beginning of the Bloodline saga up until winning that Intercontinental Championship, that is your full story arc. That Jey Uso went through it all. His losses to Roman Reigns are what started the Bloodline. The idea that, yeah, we can call you main event, but you can't beat your cousin. You can't beat the guy. He learned that at the beginning. Then over the course of this thing and everything he went through with Roman, everything he went through with Jimmy, everything that he went through with Sammy, and then finally getting to the point where he's out the Bloodline and he still can't beat Roman Reigns. To the point where he quits the Bloodline, he quits SmackDown, he quits WWE, he's fed up with all of it. And Cody Rhodes pulls some strings to get him on Raw. Well, why is Jey Uso on Monday Night Raw? And he does end up winning the Tag Team Championship for a brief period of time with Cody Rhodes. And it's fun to see Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes together. But ultimately, that was kind of a Cody Rhodes story. We loved Jey Uso for it. It made us love him more. But that was a Cody Rhodes story. You look at the original Bloodline, and who is the only one standing up with gold now? It's Jey Uso. Jey Uso has not gotten involved at all with the Solo Sikoa stuff. Solo Sikoa has been wreaking havoc on SmackDown since WrestleMania. Solo Sikoa took out his brother Jimmy. And Jey Uso can go to SmackDown if he wants to. He's got an all-access pass. He's got an employee badge. He can get in the door at SmackDown, but he hasn't gone over there, and he's barely said a word about it. Roman Reigns comes back. He doesn't go over there. He doesn't say a word about it. He's minding his own business and creating himself as a star. And what has that gotten him? The Intercontinental Championship and a victory over Braun Breaker. It says it all. And now you're at this point where Jey Uso finally, he didn't want to need the Bloodline. And now he officially doesn't need the Bloodline. He didn't have Cody's help or the Bloodline's help or anyone's help. Rhea Ripley's help on Monday Night Raw. It was him and Braun, and he won. And so now, if we do get to a point where Roman Reigns wants to bring the troops together, Roman Reigns is going to have his tail between his legs. If Roman Reigns isn't going to have his tail between his legs. Everybody wants to paint this picture of Roman Reigns like, well, he's a babyface now, so maybe he'll apologize. Are you watching the program or the product? That's rule number one, is watch the product. Are you watching the product? Roman Reigns is the same cat. Roman Reigns is the same guy. It's his field. It's his ring. It's his stadium. He's not walking in and apologizing to Jey Uso. At least not right now. Jey Uso doesn't need the Bloodline, though. And And if push comes to shove, and Cody Rhodes ends up getting distracted by Kevin Owens and Randy Orton over here, then Roman Reigns is looking at the bloodline by himself. He's going to get to a point where he needs Jey Uso more than Jey Uso needs him. And that's going to be very, very interesting. I also want to say, and this is tough because Joe Tessitore has what? Been on Monday Night Raw for 3 weeks, calling professional wrestling for 3 weeks. Tess's call for the Jey Uso match was fantastic. And that's an extremely difficult spot to be in because the Jey Uso Braun Breaker match is a match that is loaded with fan interest. And it's a match where we all feel for the participants. We feel for the people that are involved in this match. And if Joe Tessitore doesn't have that emotion behind it, he can ruin that for us. We need to know that he's painting the same picture that we're seeing, that we're feeling. And he knocked it out of the park on Monday. Every bit of emotion, knowing every call, every the right things to say. It was just, I thought he did a tremendous, tremendous job. And for somebody that's 3 weeks in, to be able to pull off a match that has that much context behind it, I just put 4 years of context behind it. And the fact that he could pull that off, hats off. Tess is doing a great job right now, and it's really cool to see. Of course, one of the big storylines on Raw lately has been the New Day and whether or not they're splitting up. I think that you got to look into the officiating on Monday Night Raw. 2 weeks of bad ref calls in New Day matches have maybe not exactly led to this, but really not helped the tension between Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. And it's been a really interesting way that this whole thing has been done. They've drawn in the fact that they don't have Big E with them anymore and haven't had him there for a very long time now, and how that's affected their chemistry. They've been real careful about the way they've portrayed this because Xavier Woods has not been wrong about anything. The idea that Kofi is not communicating with Woods, the idea that Kofi is just over here doing what he thinks is best, but Woods is not informed about any of it, is legit. Them having the same outfit but different colors. There's so much going into this. But there hasn't been that point of no return. What they did mention on Raw was that November, I think they said November, was going to be the 10-year anniversary for the New Day. What I would like to see is the New Day go all the way to the brink. It looks like Xavier Woods is a full-on villain. Kofi Kingston is the babyface that he always is going to be. And just as we're ready to jump off the cliff, just as we're ready for the New Day to pass the point of no return and to break up, something happens, whether that's Big E coming out and talking to them. Because at some point in this story, Big E does need to come back on TV and have a sit-down, even if he can't wrestle, have a sit-down with the two of them and try to get them back on the same page. Because the fact that Big E, who again also has an employee ID, can't get into a building and talk to these two, or Big E isn't going to call them on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They just show up to Monday still mad at each other. It's like, where you at, Big E? You're supposed to be friends with these guys. At some point, Big E is going to have to get involved, at least with the talkie-talkie. But maybe Big E gets involved, and it's still a blow-up. And Xavier Woods storms out, and Kofi and Big E are just looking at each other like, I don't know what to do. And that's going to bring us all the way to November. It'll take us through October. And just before the New Day splits, they don't. Right? I love the idea of a potential split being the story that leads us to our 10-year anniversary. And then when they finally hit November, the first thing they do is take out the final testament. Because Karrion Kross is going to take credit ultimately for being the one that planted the seed for this breakup. I think they have to take out the final testament, and then the celebration of the New Day's 10-year anniversary is a real challenge at the WWE Tag Team Championship. One more tag team title run for the New Day. Just when you thought they were going to break up, they make it their 10 years and they get the tag team championship one more time. I just think that to me is what more people want to see than Xavier and Kofi breaking up. I also think it could be really interesting if in 2025 you get a period of time where Jey Uso is the Intercontinental Champion, the New Day are the tag team champions, and John Cena is a world champion. You could have all of that happening in 2025. And who would have thought? Speaking of who would have thought, I guess some people, I don't think people saw it coming specifically at Grand Slam, but I think the biggest surprise, I would say, coming off of AEW Dynamite, the Grand Slam edition there in Arthur Ashe Stadium, had to be MVP making his appearance. Of course, we got the Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson match, which I think we all not only expected it would happen, but expected it would be great. It was probably even better than I expected it to be. But the biggest surprise was MVP showing up. Prince Nana is out there cutting a promo talking about Swerve and his condition, because we haven't seen Swerve wrestling. He's done media, he's done other stuff outside of AEW, but he hasn't been wrestling since the Hangman match, since the Lights Out cage match. But he was out there talking about Swerve. He's not quite ready to come back yet, but he will be. Also, here's my coffee. And that's when MVP comes out. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is M to the VP. And MVP talks about Swerve and wonders why the person who beat Swerve in that cage, the person who burned Swerve's house to the ground, is still standing. Why is the person who took Swerve's AEW championship still standing? He said he doesn't see any flaw in Swerve. He sees a flaw in Swerve's management. And maybe if certain people were less concentrative on selling coffee and thinking a little bit more about the best interest of Swerve, well, then Swerve would be in a better place. And he says, here's my business card. And MVP gives Prince Nana a business card that says MVP on it and says, tell Swerve to reach out when he's ready. And you go, oh, boy. Oh, boy. I think this is really cool. I like having storytellers in there like MVP. MVP is a really talented dude. I mean, MVP and the second run that he had leading into the pandemic era and beyond, bringing out the Hurt Business, being able to be a manager, wrestler, commentator, everything all at once. I think MVP proved how much he was capable of in his second run in WWE, even more so than he did in his original run. So I think he'll be an asset to AEW. I think ultimately at this point, I think the AEW fan base loves Swerve. I think he's too beloved to be a villain managed by MVP. I think he is going to turn down MVP. But we've all watched wrestling before. What happens when you turn down a heel manager? They get furious. They get upset. They don't handle rejection well. And I think that MVP is going to end up bringing in the one and only Bobby Lashley to take out Swerve, and you'll end up with MVP and Lashley trying to get revenge against Swerve and Prince Nana. And I think that if Swerve isn't going for the world title anytime soon, because Danielson's on his tour, Swerve versus Lashley would be a pretty sweet rivalry for Swerve to come back to an AEW. I mean, it is interesting because AEW really is, the identity of what and who they are is definitely shifting. But I think that shouldn't be that surprising. You know, this is a young company that's 5 years in? I think officially 5 years in this week. So like the idea that maybe they don't exactly match who they were 5 years ago is natural. They shouldn't. They should be growing, and they should be growing astronomically right now because they're so young. Once you really establish yourselves, that's when you're like, this is exactly who the brand is. But when you're still building the brand, you've got some mobility there. If you would just give me a moment, support for Notsam Wrestling is brought to you by Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. It's a super busy time of the year, whether you're running to school pickup, racing to a meeting, hitting the gym, fuel up with Huel. It's a full meal that can be ready in seconds with no prep and no cooking required. Huel shakes taste just like a milkshake and are designed by experts to have all the nutrients your body needs from a meal. It takes the guesswork and confusion out of eating well. I do it all the time. I have no time. So what do? I grab a Huel and I go, and it's not disgusting. I enjoy myself. It's available in both chocolate and vanilla flavors. You're going to love it. Take the leap and join the community of Hueligans with 15% off with code NOTSAM at Huel.com. That's 15% off with code NOTSAM at Huel, Huel.com, or just click the link in our show notes. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters. You know, you can move it around a little bit, and I think that's what they're doing, and I think that's a good thing. It looks like AJ Styles isn't going to be going to AEW anytime soon, unless maybe he is. I don't know. There were rumors. He was one of the handful of guys that there's always rumors about contracts coming up, but everything on the internet is so wrong and misleading anyway that that maybe that's not even a thing. But AJ Styles announced to be returning to Smackdown next week. It's going to be a big Smackdown in Nashville. You've got AJ Styles return. I don't know. Are they doing the 7th Andrade Mello match? It wouldn't surprise me if they did. We've got a tag team championship multi-team ladder match, and we've got the return of AJ Styles. In terms of AJ Styles returning, I would love to see him return as a good guy. I would love to see him return as a babyface. And that's because, I don't know, the idea of AJ Styles, I think he's a good villain, but I don't think he's going to win anything right now as a villain. I don't think AJ Styles as a villain is going to dethrone any world champions. So the idea of him being a villain and losing, I saw it. I saw it in the rivalry with Cody. He's been gone long enough that you don't need to live by that. And I'd rather see a babyface AJ Styles. And don't even, get him in there with Gallows and Anderson, right? Maybe bring back Shinsuke. Heel Shinsuke versus babyface AJ. Heel Gallows and Anderson versus babyface AJ. These are all programs that AJ Styles can win and rebuild and remind people how good he is. That's kind of why I want him to be a good guy. Because I want him to just remind people how good he is and how lucky we are to have AJ Styles at this point in his career, at this point in his life, to be going at the rate that he's still capable of going. We should be able to appreciate that. When I say we should be able to appreciate that, we should be able to go to arenas and cheer for that. And the way we get that done is by him being a good guy. So that's and who knows, maybe there'll be more members added to SmackDown's roster. Raw is going 2 hours soon, next week or something like that? So they won't need, it wouldn't make sense to have Raw have a lopsided roster right now, I wouldn't think. So maybe there'll be new SmackDown people to come over, new stories for AJ Styles to tell. I don't know. But before we get into emails, which we will, couple of news and notes. Of course, the Vince McMahon documentary came out on Netflix. I said a lot about it, did a whole emergency podcast about it, an instant reaction to it. I watched it all in one day. I'm going to say I was disappointed by the lack of depth I think it went into when it comes to Vince McMahon as a human being. I would check out all my thoughts on it. I did a whole show about it earlier in the week, so you can listen to that or watch it on the Notsam Wrestling YouTube channel. Very excited about the addition of Dominic Mysterio being up in a shark cage for the Rhea Ripley-Liv Morgan match at Bad Blood. Bad Blood's going to be a hell of a pay-per-view, man. And, of course, speaking of a hell of a pay-per-view, looks like SummerSlam, we already knew it was going to be 2 nights in Indianapolis, but it looks like SummerSlam is a 2-night event, starts this year. And if they're doing this year and next year, I would imagine every year SummerSlam is now a 2-night event. I think that's how we have to think moving forward. It's going to the Meadowlands. It's going to MetLife Stadium. Same place they did WrestleMania 29. It's the last pay-per-view, I believe, in MetLife Stadium, right? No, 35. WrestleMania 35, of course, was in MetLife Stadium. So, same location as WrestleMania 35 is where we're going to get SummerSlam 2025. 2-night event, spectacular. And they're advertising it for the first time that building has ever been advertised as New Jersey. Not New York, New Jersey, just New Jersey. So I'm sure Dave LaGreca will be thrilled. Let's get into the emails. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com is the email address. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com is our email address. If you want to contribute to the Not Sam Wrestling show, email us, NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. Josh writes in, acknowledgements to you, the original and only podcast tribal chief. I appreciate that. With AJ Styles on his way back, do you think there's a future where he mixes it up with the Judgment Day, more specifically Finn Balor? I know they're on separate brands for now, but I find the history between the two intriguing, especially most recently where Styles, Balor, and Liv all clashed with the original Judgment Day prior to Finn joining. That's interesting. Now Finn and Liv are key members and Styles is not. If everything counts, then there might be some meat here with Styles feeling like Finn sold out. Of course, they would need to get on the same brand, and Styles would likely have to come back as a babyface. Well, as you know, I think that Styles should be a babyface. And I don't know. I mean, the Judgment Day is right in the middle of something right now, so we might have to wait until they're done with this Terror Twins story. But I could see the Judgment Day moving over to SmackDown. And I think if they did, I think it would be less about Finn, AJ, and Liv being a team at one point, and more about the fact that Finn Balor versus AJ Styles is Bullet Club leaders. You know, I think that the Triple H, I think has historically respected what the Bullet Club has done in wrestling. You know, and there have been a lot of references to AJ and Balor and Gallows and Anderson and all those guys as Bullet Club members. I think it'd be interesting if once this was all done, I mean, maybe the Judgment Day, I don't know. I could see the Judgment Day dismantling. Dominic and Liv and maybe JD stay together. I don't know what happens to Carlito. And maybe Finn Balor goes to SmackDown and Finn Balor and Gallows and Anderson start their own club without AJ Styles. That could be interesting. But that's a little bit down the road, I think. Andy writes in, first, I'm loving Raw Talk. You and Megan seem to have a blast. Your heelish button pushing is hilarious. I can't help myself with that, but I love it. It's so fun. It's the best. If you guys aren't watching, I would appreciate it if you, just flipped on Peacock after Monday Night Raw, because I think anybody watching it can see that I'm having the time of my life being unscripted on a WWE show, doing a show with somebody who I like. It's a lot of fun. I'm sure it's wishful thinking, but do you think the PRF symbol on Raw is hinting at the return of the Viking Raiders or bringing in the Lucha Brothers? While I like both groups, I think it would be awesome to see Penta and Phoenix in WWE. Personally, I'd love to see more attention paid to Lucha, high-flying cruiserweight style. There are definitely some current superstars that could work well with it. If the brothers eventually land in WWE, where do you see them fitting in? Well, I definitely think the Lucha Brothers would be great in WWE, and I would love to see Penta and Phoenix in the WWE. But I was flabbergasted at the amount of conversation there was about that vignette that was shown on Raw very quickly, the graphic with the lettering and everything. As soon as I saw it, I went, oh, Viking Raiders, obviously. I mean, it's like Nordic lettering. It's Viking lettering. Like, it looks like the Viking Raiders. And there were so many people that were like, Lucha Brothers, Lucha Brothers, Lucha. It's not, not even a little bit of me thinks that that's hinting at the Lucha Brothers. It makes perfect sense that that's the return of the Viking Raiders. They've been on the shelf. They're still signed to WWE. The thing looked like a Viking shield. The lettering is Nordic or whatever it's called. It's Viking letters. It's the Viking Raiders. I would love to see the Lucha Brothers in the WWE. But the thing that we saw on Raw, in my opinion, had nothing to do with that. That said, if the Viking Raiders are coming back to Monday Night Raw, hopefully that's another step in getting the tag division rolling and rolling and rolling again. If we get a hot tag division, well, then the Lucha Brothers fit in quite nicely there, don't they? Let's see. Carlos writes in, how come we never talk about the times Pete Rose got his ass whooped by Kane? It happened in 3 consecutive WrestleManias. Well, yeah, but I don't know. I guess it's never come up. How come we don't talk about Regis Philbin being at WrestleMania? I don't know. Side note, in 2005, my boss had monthly luncheons that included sports celebrities. This particular luncheon had Pete Rose putting over my boss overselling wrestling cars, overselling cars at our dealership. Okay. When the meeting was over, we had the opportunity to ask the athletes a question. I could care less about his baseball accomplishments. I went up to Pete and asked him how it felt to be tombstoned by Kane. He gave me a face of disdain. He looked offended. He didn't give me an answer. I just walked away with a huge smile. Carlos, you did the exact right thing. And if you ever get the opportunity to do it again. Why would he not talk about how fun that was? I'm sure he had the time of his life. WrestleMania 14. How about it? How about it? And then he gets tombstoned. I mean, Kane was a heel. He still tombstoned Pete Rose after Pete Rose was acting like a heel. The booking made no sense whatsoever, and we still love it. Yeah, I mean, we don't talk about it because it's never come up. It's Pete Rose from 15 years, 20 years ago. But it was great. Matt writes in, Sam, I think I figured out why so many wrestling fans felt unsatisfied by the Bill Simmons documentary about Vince. Not nearly enough time was spent on the big bad booty daddy, Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. Holler if you hear me. Yeah, there was a disturbing lack of Scott Steiner content for sure. This is coming from Mark. Sam, my podcast, Tribal Chief and Wise Man, I acknowledge you and your keen insight into the world of professional wrestling. I've been watching the product. With the Chargers losing and the Rams off to a lousy start. There's a lot of teams off to a lousy start. I just watched the Jets. I mean, have a lead. I mean, it was a garbage lead. It was like 9-0 or I mean, it was a terrible game. But then watching the Jets lose with like 3 minutes left to the Broncos, of course, it's the most Jets thing ever. I've been speculating and wanted to share some thoughts with you. First off, the new SmackDown logo looks like it says Smack Sound. I think that when I saw the new SmackDown logo by itself, I went, I don't know about that. But when I saw it, like all the kind of imaging packaged together and all the branding packaged together, I kind of dug it. I liked it. Second, I don't see the Bloodline Civil War at this year's Survivor Series. I think they're going to let it cook. What I do see is Cody, do not repitch me my own idea. Don't do it. You know that gets under my skin. What I do see is Cody and Roman having a finish next week at Bad Blood that leads to a babyface bloodline match at Survivor Series. Cody recruits Randy and KO as partners. You're literally at the end of the match, Cody first tags Roman in to get the pin, then holds Roman's arm up. Then Randy and Kevin Owens turn, what you don't have to get into every detail. Throwing Roman in the bloodline and give. All right, I'm done. First of all, it sounds like you're shaping up my own bloodline idea, which I said it weeks ago that Survivor Series was going to be Roman, Cody, Randy, and Kevin versus the Bloodline. But now you're calling spots? I mean, there's fantasy booking, and then there's, like, insanity. Rob writes in, I'd like your thoughts on Xavier Woods being behind Jey Uso's first feud. Being Jey Uso's first feud with the Intercontinental title post-Braun. It could start with a clean competitive match that Jey offers and wins, but then Woods attacks him. Wood's story of slowly turning into a darker character in pursuit of accolades would align perfectly. Yeah, we get to see Oscar-worthy dramatic performances from Jey that we haven't seen. No, I mean, look, let's relax. I think it would be a good thing to do on Raw. I don't think that we're talking about the greatest storyline there's ever been. I think that it would be a great storyline to do until we don't fully get the split of the New Day. The reformation of the New Day is going to be the best. But yeah, I think Xavier Woods and Jey Uso would be a good rivalry in the meantime. Let's see. Hari is here. Hope the OPTC is doing great. I am. You discussed how much Jey winning the Intercontinental Championship would add to the Bloodline saga. So are we looking at a scenario where Sammy wins the World Heavyweight Championship from Gunther, and now we have both Jey and Honorary Usos as champions? No. Seeing how much they're building up Sammy to face Gunther already with the match not even announced, I think there has to be something more to Sammy here than just being Gunther's next victim. Also, if Sammy wins, it would be interesting to see Gunther being this unstoppable force, but somehow, strangely, Sammy becomes the only nightmare and mountain he can't climb. What do you think? P.S. I don't know if this sounds stupid, but am I the only one who's a bit confused on still seeing Sammy as the underdog in every feud and match he's in? He's already proven to be a top player, and this underdog character needs to be improvised? You mean improved? Improvised. No, I think Sammy pulls off the underdog character great. I think he still does. I mean, and it's just a matter of finding different opponents, right? I think that like Sammy being the underdog in a match with Braun Breaker is because it makes Braun Breaker look great. Sammy being an underdog in a match with Gunther makes Gunther look that much more fierce. I don't personally think that Gunther is going to lose the World Heavyweight Championship already to Sami Zayn. I think if that were going to be the case, I think maybe they could have this end in a schmaz, and then 6 months down the road, Sammy goes after him. But I don't think the story of Jey winning a championship is not the same as Sammy. Sammy was in the bloodline, but the story of Sami Zayn in the WWE is not linked with what he did in the bloodline. It's just it may be the best thing he ever did, but it's one of the great things that he did. Sammy is forever linked to Kevin Owens, but Sammy winning the world title, I don't think has any context whatsoever on the bloodline. And if you contextualize it with the bloodline, then you have taken away Jey Uso's thunder. Like, it's like, oh my God, Jey Uso's come full circle by winning the Intercontinental Championship. By the way, Sami Zayn just won the better title, and we're putting that in the bloodline story too. I don't think so. I mean, Sammy's not even blood. Sammy coming back would be Jey finally comes back, and then Jey just brings Sammy back as Jey's friend. That would be how that would work, I think. Dustin writes in, Roman said Solo's bloodline took Jimmy and Heyman away from him, but all they did was beat them up. So if someone beats up your family, you can't talk to them anymore? Makes no sense. This is just somebody who likes to complain. This is an email from a person who, in their regular day-to-day life, probably wakes up in the morning, finds something to complain about, and probably annoys coworkers by complaining a lot. And Paul Heyman seemed to suffer under Solo's control, and Roman ghosted him and didn't even bother to call him and ask if he's okay. Roman just seems like a jerk, blaming others for his lack of social skills. It seems like Roman's fault that he's alone now, not Solo's. Please help. I'm so confused. I really don't get it. Ultimately, Roman is going to have to suffer consequences for the actions that he took. And Roman's grandeur has not dipped down. Just because fans are cheering him, Roman as a character has not changed at all. The idea is that the bloodline put Jimmy and Paul Heyman on the shelf. They can't be in WWE right now. They are on the shelf. Could Roman visit them in a hospital? Yes. Could Roman hang out at their house? Yes. Roman is not complaining about the fact that he can't hang out with them. Roman is upset about the fact that they are not representing him in the WWE because they are on the shelf. And the new bloodline put them on the shelf. Roman is very protective of his bloodline. If somebody puts their hands on his bloodline, he wants to seek revenge on them. Solo and his bloodline were the people that did that. So now Roman is seeking revenge. Roman ghosting Paul Heyman is not a nice thing to do. But I don't think, the idea that, like, they triple powerbombed him through a table. And you're like, yeah, but Roman didn't call him. All right. If that's who you're going to be, it would be infuriating to watch a show with you. But I appreciate the email. I appreciate you listening. Let's see. William writes in, I wanted to shoot out a scenario for the Judgment Day leading up to WrestleMania. WrestleMania is a long way away, dude. I do believe, as you previously alluded to, Liv will end up leaving Dom, and she and Finn will have been in cahoots all along. I didn't allude to that. I specifically last week said that wasn't going to happen. That would leave Dominic with nothing. No, I didn't allude to that. I said others have alluded to it, and I disagreed with it. This inevitably leads to Dominic being jumped out of the group, then the Ultimate Father, Ray, comes out to save his son. They reunite, and we get a tag title match at WrestleMania. They've already won the tag. Didn't they? Well, maybe they didn't win the tag championship. They already had a tag match. They've had a couple tag matches at WrestleMania. As we work our way to Mania, we all begin to really embrace and love Dom as we realize he was just an impressionable idiot all along. He loves and supports his dad in his promos. We as fans see their love and feel it, but so do Finn and JD. So you want Finn and JD to hold the tag team, nervous about losing the titles. The stipulation is added. If Ray and Dom lose, Ray has to retire. We get our match and assume Ray and Dom will win. However, Ray, being the ultimate face in real life, puts over JD. Well, damn. At least we get the greatest emotional moment in WrestleMania history. Ray gets to stand in the ring one last time with his son. We cry, we cheer. Then we see Dom low blow his father and become the greatest heel of all time. Okay. I mean, you can't have somebody that over as a heel. Do all the work to get them over as a babyface, only to have them turn again, because fans will just get tired of it. Secondly, you're now leaving the tag team championship on JD and Finn all the way from now until WrestleMania. And third, they lose. Ray and Dom lose, and Dom low blows Ray, but Liv still left him. So, like, did Liv not really leave Dom? Rocky writes in, with the Netflix docuseries, VKM appears to be taking a beating during his WWE period. He's very generous with the talent. Do you see his generosity continuing under new, helping Vicky when sending a plane? Do you see this generosity continuing under the new ownership, or will that go? So you're asking me if the new ownership of WWE will be as generous as Vince? How would I know? I don't know how generous anyone is. I mean, I would hope everybody's nice to each other. Dennis writes in, which match do you think should main event Bad Blood? Great question. I answered it earlier, but that was a great question. Michael writes in, I just want to say that the New Day storyline is low-key one of the most interesting storylines happening at the moment. Do you think it's possible we get Kofi versus Woods match at WrestleMania with Big E as special guest referee? It's possible. I mean, I see it going another way. I would like for it to go the other way, but I would agree. I mean, the slow burn on the New Day thing is incredibly compelling. Okay. Last email. All right, from Barry. The subject says fun one. Let's see. Hello to the only PTC, Podcast Tribal Chief, from across the pond in the south of England, the Isle of Wight, if you've heard of it. Of course I have. This is a fun one for you. If the 3 rules of Notsam Wrestling were wrestling gimmicks in the WWE, who would you give them to and how would you play it out? My take for one is Kevin Owens with Watch the Product character. He goes around telling people he'd seen on the show last week. If someone gives their friend a side-eyed, or if he catches a conversation in the background, we as fans would get on board because we saw that too. Okay, the other 2 rules, okay, all right. The other 2 rules, okay, speculate wildly. I would probably give Carlito, I really enjoy this version of Carlito. I would probably let Carlito speculate wildly, because the idea of Carlito, like, gossiping with people and having them get upset about things that are just wild speculation on his part. And then when they go, like, I just beat this guy up and what you said wasn't even true. And he goes, I don't know. I thought it was true. I don't know. I thought it sounded cool. I don't know. Like, I would love that. And then everything counts. Who is everything? Probably Paul Heyman would be my everything counts character, where, like, Paul Heyman could do these despicable things. And then like a lawyer, when asked to justify why he did that, he would bring up something that happened like 3 or 4 years ago. And we'd have footage of it and everything. And we go, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, I guess everything counts. You know? That's probably the way I would do it. But that was a fun one. I appreciate you, Barry. I appreciate all you guys for emailing in. Please know, even when I make fun of your emails, I love you for them. And I'm doing it with love, with peace and love. You can email in notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're watching or listening, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Leave a rating, leave a review, leave comments, hit like. Do everything you can. And I'll see you soon, I'm sure. Maybe we'll do a NXT after show after the CW. If not, I'm sure we'll do a Bad Blood after show. We'll see you then. Have a good one, everybody.